And a pleasant good afternoon to you once again. John Verlin with On-Demand Advertising Solutions and Digital Marketing Update. This is the 75th podcast I've done over the last year, pretty much. First anniversary coming up here. And got another email this past week. A lady named Sherry in Kansas City, Kansas says there seems to be a pattern of these type of questions. She's saying that small business resources are a problem. You've been listening to your podcasts. What would you recommend I spend on, say, direct mail versus creating content and promotion on my social media channels, et cetera, networking, things like that? Sherry, it's a good question, and really only you can make that decision, because this is why the having perspective on marketing is important, because the recent developments of social media and the channels of engagement and all that sort of thing, and the shifting, as I've mentioned in earlier podcasts, of media shifting to people being more online and all that sort of thing, you have to have a perspective from the past as to what you can consider normal today in relation, because back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you didn't have, I remember from my career in radio, I had clients complaining that your radio station, which was a classical radio station, reached about 120,000 people a week on FM, were too many people. You have too big an audience. But then if you went to an oldie station, that was 300,000 people a week. And you had radio station formats that you might have 20 different formats in a market. So radio gave the option of being able to target. Magazines begin to diversify more specifically towards counties or city areas and things of that nature, or lifestyle, psychographic lifestyle, whatever. So back then, you had too many people. Today, we're too focused. We don't have enough reach, so the argument might go. You're only getting your message on Facebook advertising in front of maybe 2,000 people a day or a week or whatever it is. So you have to have a perspective on what is something you need to be testing to see if A, it's reaching enough people, if it's reaching the right people, and if you're doing it often enough to make an impression. Those are kind of the three things to keep in mind when you make these decisions. And yeah, as a small business, I know resources are limited, so what do you allocate to? Well, and as you've heard from my previous podcast, the one thing I want to emphasize that people have asked about, and that about content, and why I'm so much in favor of that, is that's the original game changer. If you think about this, back in the Stone Age, you would see paintings on a cave. Now, what does that represent? Well, they might be paintings of people or hunting or animals they saw or they killed. But it withstood the test of time, and it was a communication medium. They wanted to communicate an idea. If you go back to the beginning of civilization in Mesopotamia, I can't remember the stela they called it, but the cuneiform writings, hieroglyphics in Egypt, all those were methods of communicating ideas. They were content. Images, messages they wanted to convey to an audience, whether it was their own people or people of future generations. All that is the beginning of human communication. And it hadn't changed. We still want to communicate with one another. It's just through a different medium. We aren't using cuneiform script or papyrus. We're using electronic devices with images or videos, images that move or sound. So the technology is what's changed, but the basic information or content has always been something that 100 years from now, if they dug up, it would have your name on it, because you created that message or content for a given audience or prospect. Okay, so this is why content to me is so important, because we did this all the time in radio with commercials, where we would have advertisers record an radio ad. We'd give them the ad, tell them to put it on their website, promote it. that was a way to separate themselves from their competition, because if their competition was doing newspaper or magazine, they could have print ads made, maybe linked to them when the web came out, but the MP3 or the radio type ad allowed them to post it on their website. People could listen right there or download it or share it. So it was just a different way to communicate in a different manner that not everybody was doing, which would separate them out. Okay, so Sherry, in answer to your question, basically, you have to decide on the budget. You have to decide how you want to allocate that. I'm in favor of really making content your priority, because that is something you own and you can put it on a blog or on your website or something that you control, that you don't have to fear terribly when algorithms change or platforms change or people change and what they're paying attention to. They may no longer use Snapchat or Pinterest. They may start using Instagram more or whatever. All that can change in a matter of years, and it has in the past. So keep that in mind when you decide how you want to allocate your money, because something you own, you control, you want to, I would say, invest the most in, and then test. Spend a certain budget to test the different mediums, the newspaper, the direct mail, the print, because your content is what you want to drive them to via your website or your blog. Does that make sense? Because the content's something that shows your expertise and your brand currency. That's what you're trying to do, which helps them trust you, which helps sell you, not just a service or product, you. And that's what content does. When you see content dating back to a pharaoh in Egypt, describing a wedding or an event, that king owns that. You know about that pharaoh because of that content. Without the content, you may not have even heard of the pharaoh's name. Same with your content. When people get that, they now know your name. And today, we've become many media conglomerates with a smartphone and these platforms. We can produce video, audio, print, anything we want, just like the big publishers, broadcasting stations, radio stations did 20 years ago or more, only we have a much smaller scale to work with. But you can be in charge of your stuff, or if you don't want to be, you hire somebody to come in and do it for you or help you with it. So content creation, to me, is the name of the game, and I think that's been shown over and over and over, and a lot of marketing is shifting to that because of that. So what I want to talk about today, though, this kind of leads into, is staying focused and committed to your marketing plan, because you have to evaluate, okay, how all in are you and your team or your business to your marketing? How committed are you? I'm assuming you make a marketing plan at the beginning of the year or for the beginning of the year for all of this year to have an organized process that you all sign off on. All employees, all partners, all management sign off on this plan. You have to do this just like a financial plan. You all have to agree on that. No different with marketing. Yes, you can change when needed, but all of marketing has always been a test. I'll give you 90 days to produce results. Today it may be a week, with social media. It's so fast. But some of the takeaways I want you to remember are there on my blog post, and that's getting everybody to sign off on this is important. You want everybody to own this decision. You don't want one person arguing and saying, I told you people this wouldn't work. You want everybody to agree to it, because it's crucial to get a buy-in from everybody, okay? And you know what? You think you know something, you may not know anything. The starting point really is providing information for what your prospects or clients might want to know about. And you all have to agree on that, whether you do a survey or interviews or a customer questionnaire or whatever. You need to all agree on some of what you're going to be talking about with your prospects. All the marketing strategies and goals need to be researched and thought out in advance, and this is part of your plan. The same thing, like I mentioned, as financial goals. You want to have this planned out. Okay, last year we tried Facebook and Twitter. We were disappointed with such and such. We want to continue with, say, Facebook, or maybe we're switching it over to Instagram. We want to try something different. We want to test that. In other words, you build your test strategies into that plan. We're going to give it 3 to 6 months, or however you want to do it. Again, you have to test and call the results at some point and move forward one way or the other, but you have to give things a fair chance. You can't expect miracles. When you read about these things, they are just that, puff pieces, in my opinion, a lot of them. They make the headlines, but they're not the everyday. The everyday newspaper doesn't work. Social media doesn't work. Direct mail doesn't work. Email marketing doesn't work. Nothing works. I mean, that could be said of anything, and that has always been said of everything. Think about the newspaper advertiser 20 years ago that put $5,000 in 1 month into some newspaper ads and didn't get any feedback. How mad would they be? You do it for a couple months, newspaper doesn't work. But then you got another guy who, kept consistency, and third, fourth month it started to work. That's why testing and putting a plan in place is so important, to agree on everything. We're going to do this 6 months. We're going to do it once we get a certain percentage result or return. We're going to go ahead and commit. This is all art and science and marketing. It's just the way it is, and you have to all agree on that. As I mentioned just a minute ago, have a predetermined test time within the overall plan. Decide on how long we're going to be doing this. Let's all agree on this. We don't want anybody off kilter here, because we don't want anybody to point fingers if it works or doesn't work. And just because you're a genius today doesn't mean you'll be a genius tomorrow. That's why you got to stay on top of all this. And utilizing the rich media content you create should be a critical part of your plan, with ongoing promotion of that content. Well, why would we do this? Because content gives you something of value to be able to promote to prospects and customers on a regular basis. That, in a nutshell, is why content's so important. It gives you something to promote, not just a website or a logo, but something of interest that they will want to engage in, whether it's reading, listening, viewing. That's why content's so critical. And for a lot of businesses who say, I don't want to create content, I don't have the budget to do it, I don't have the expertise, I don't have the time, you're missing out on giving prospects reasons to want to know about you and your expertise. That's why content's so critical. It's a reflection of your brand. Now, I know we used to not even have brands. I mean, we were just advertisers and business owners. Now, today, we have a brand to promote. It's all how they view things. It's all how customers perceive things today. John Verlin12 at AT&T.net is my email for comments or questions. Sherry, thank you for that email. I hope I answered it in depth enough for you to kind of get a balance there on what you should invest in, and the whole concept of testing a lot of your ideas as part of an overall strategy that everybody agrees on. On-Demand Advertising Solutions, a website. Check it out. Let me know if I can help you, and we'll talk to you soon.